The stars over Cygna 9 burned red that night. Beneath them, the last ship of Earth's elite strike team moved silently through the void, its black hull reflecting the faint light of dying suns. Inside the ship, Commander Elise Ward stood before a small group of soldiers, men and women who had seen too many battles, fought too many wars, and buried too many friends. They were Earth's finest. The Ghost Unit. And this was their final mission. For months, the war against the Krith Hive had gone badly. Every human fleet that entered their systems vanished. Every colony that resisted was stripped bare, its people harvested, their screams echoing in deep space. The Krith were not a species. They were a swarm, millions of creatures moving under one mind. They didn't speak. They didn't trade. They conquered for sport, leaving behind worlds made of bone and ash. Elise's mission was to end it, a secret operation. A false peace meeting, a lie powerful enough to bring the Krith Queen out of hiding. If the Queen died, the Hive would fall into chaos. Humanity might finally breathe again. Once we're in, Elise said, her voice low but sharp. No one speaks unless I do. They'll read emotion. They'll smell fear. You hold that line and you live. Her second-in-command, Sergeant Nolan, smiled grimly. And if we mess up? Elise didn't blink. Then we die ugly. The crew gave short, nervous laughs. The kind soldiers used to hide fear. Outside, their ship approached the Krith vessel, a living fortress that pulsed like a beating heart. Its hull was bone and black slime, its veins glowing blue with plasma flow. Elise hated it already. Prepare for docking, she ordered. And remember, humans don't kneel. The docking clamps connected with a wet, sucking noise. A long, fleshy corridor opened before them, like the throat of a giant beast. The team stepped inside, suits sealed, weapons ready. Every step squelched. Every breath sounded too loud. Steady, Elise whispered. And we're just here to talk. At the end of the corridor, the Krith waited. They were taller than humans, thin, angular creatures with skin like cracked stone and eyes that burned violet. Their armor wasn't metal. It grew from their bodies, alive and twitching. The lead creature stepped forward. Its voice hissed inside their helmets without sound. The humans come to beg. Elise stood firm. The humans come to negotiate. A low rumble spread through the chamber. Laughter, dry, echoing alien. You cannot negotiate with hunger, the voice replied. You cannot reason with the swarm. Still, they guided her and her team deeper into the hive ship, past tunnels of pulsing light and moving walls. The air thickened, sweet and rotten. The hive was alive. It breathed. It watched. At the heart of it stood the Queen's chamber, a vast cathedral made of bone and dark honeycomb. The Queen's form hung suspended in the center, a colossal creature made of silk and muscle, her voice crawling through every corner. Elise Ward of Earth, the Queen whispered inside her mind. You have killed many of my children. Elise met the empty gaze without flinching. And I'll kill you too. Gasps filled the chamber. Her soldiers tensed, hands drifting to their rifles. The Krith guards hissed, but the Queen only smiled. You came to kill me, little flame. How brave. How foolish, Elise's pulse quickened. The plan was collapsing too fast. The explosives they had hidden in their suits were already armed, just one code away from detonation. Then came the mistake. A sound. Small, sharp. The clink of metal hitting bone. Private Harlow had dropped a grenade pin. For one frozen heartbeat, no one moved. Then the hive screamed. Everything turned white. Energy bolts lit the chamber. Harlow's body was torn apart before she could even cry out. The team opened fire. The hive walls exploded with blue blood. The air filled with acid and smoke. Elise shouted commands, but they were drowned by the howls of the Krith. The soldiers fell one by one. Nolan tried to drag Elise toward the exit, but a tendril whipped out, slicing through his armor. He looked up at her with glassy eyes and whispered, "Finish it, Commander." Then he was gone. Elise fought until her rifle ran dry, then drew her blade. She cut, stabbed, screamed. Every movement was survival. Every breath tasted like death. The hive didn't fight like soldiers. They moved as one body, one mind, unstoppable. She felt her legs snap. She fell. Something struck her head. The world went dark. When Elise woke, she was chained to a wall of living flesh. Her wounds burned, her armor gone. Alien shapes moved around her, whispering in their strange voices. The Queen's form loomed above, dripping with shimmering blood. "You fascinate us," the Queen said. "So much rage in something so weak. Elise spat blood. You think I'm weak? Try me. The queen tilted her head. Very well. You will be tested. You will walk the hive's core. If you survive, perhaps you are more than prey. A deep hum filled the air. The walls shifted. The chains released. A tunnel opened before her, a throat of pulsing light leading into darkness. Every alien in the chamber watched silently. Some smiled. Some whispered bets. None expected her to live. Elise looked into that tunnel, breathing hard. Her heart beat steady now. The fear was gone, replaced by something sharper. She thought of her team, of Earth burning, of Nolan's last words, and she whispered to herself, "You wanted a test? Fine." She stepped into the darkness. The hive's walls closed behind her with a wet, final sound. From somewhere deep within, she heard laughter. At first, she thought it was the hive mocking her. Then she realized it was her own. The hive swallowed her whole. The tunnel stretched endlessly before Elise, glowing faintly red as if lit by blood beneath the surface. The air was heavy, thick with humidity and rot. Every step made the ground squirm under her boots, as though the hive itself was alive and angry. The walls pulsed slow and steady, like a giant creature breathing around her. Elise kept moving. She didn't look back. Her weapon was gone. Her armor torn away by the Krith. All she had was a jagged piece of metal she'd ripped from her broken restraints. In her hands it felt like hope. The silence pressed on her ears. No footsteps, no voices. Only the faint, wet sound of something crawling somewhere close. She knew she was being watched. The hive's whispers began as faint murmurs, just behind her thoughts. Then they grew clearer. "You are alone, human." The others screamed longer. "You will scream too." Elise forced her breathing to stay calm. "Nice try," she muttered under her breath. "I will have to do better." The hive wanted her afraid. It wanted her broken. But fear was something she'd already buried with her dead crew. She reached a fork in the tunnel. One path glowed faint blue. The other shimmered red, almost inviting. She picked the blue, less light, less noise. Easier to hide. As she walked deeper, the air grew colder. The walls changed color. Gray veins of bone crawling up through the red flesh. Strange pods hung from the ceiling, each one pulsing softly. She stopped, tilting her head. Inside the pods, something moved. She approached carefully, raising her makeshift blade. Through the translucent shell, she saw faces, half-formed creatures, half human, half Krith. Their eyes twitched behind sealed lids. Her stomach turned. The hive wasn't just killing humans. It was experimenting on them. "Trying to make copies, monsters," she whispered. One of the pods cracked open. A newborn Krith-human hybrid crawled out, gasping for air. Its body trembled, its hands too human, its eyes too alien. It looked at her. And it spoke. "My mother." For 1 second, Elise froze. It wasn't possible. The voice was soft, almost human, like a child calling for comfort. Then its jaw split wide open, revealing rows of dripping teeth. It screamed and lunged. Elise reacted on instinct. Her blade slashed through its throat. Blue blood sprayed the walls. The creature twitched, then went still. Elise stood over it. Panting, shaking, but alive, she whispered, "I'm not your mother." The hive screamed inside her head. Thousands of angry voices crying in pain, in rage, in something close to grief. The walls around her pulsed faster, furious. So it could feel. Elise smiled bitterly. "Good," she said. "Now you know what it's like." Hours or maybe days passed. Time had no meaning in the hive. She learned to move silently, to hide when the crawling sounds came closer. The drones that hunted her were blind, following scent and vibration. She used that. At first it was small tricks. She smeared the blue blood of dead drones over her skin to mask her scent. She threw stones down tunnels to lead them away. But soon she began to hunt back. She set traps using their own bodies, sharpening their claws into spikes, setting them at tunnel corners. When one drone chased her, it fell right into the trap and tore itself apart. Every kill taught her more. Every death made her stronger. The hive whispered again, but this time the tone was different. Less mocking, more cautious. "You learn fast, human. You are not prey." Perhaps something else. Elise grinned through her blood and sweat. "Now you're getting it." In the heart of the hive, she found a massive chamber filled with bioluminescent sacs. Inside them, floating bodies drifted, dead soldiers from her team. Nolan was among them. Her breath hitched. The hive was using their memories, feeding on them. One of the sacks burst. A creature stumbled out wearing Nolan's face. His armor twisted into alien flesh, his voice broken. "Elise, help me." Her hands shook. For a moment she almost believed it. Then she saw the black veins crawling up his neck, the insect eyes blinking from behind human pupils. The hive was trying to trick her again. She closed her eyes, raised her blade and whispered, "I already did. One strike, clean, final." The creature fell. The hive roared again in fury, but Elise only laughed, quiet at first, then louder. It wasn't the laugh of madness. It was the sound of something awakening. The hive wanted her broken. Instead, it was teaching her how to be ruthless, how to survive its rules, how to turn its own body into a weapon. And deep down, the hive knew it. Later, as she rested beside a glowing wall, she noticed something strange. The hive's surface shimmered under her touch, like it was reacting. The red glow beneath her palm pulsed faster. In rhythm with her heartbeat, it was listening. "Can you hear me?" she whispered. The wall rippled, forming faint shapes, eyes, mouths, fragments of faces. The hive was trying to speak. "Why? Do you fight?" Elise leaned close. "Because you started it," the hive hissed. "We are one." "You are alone." "Wrong," she said. "I have my rage." "And you can't eat that." She slammed her blade into the wall. The hive screamed, shaking the tunnel. Flesh tore. Acid sprayed. Elise walked on, soaked in alien blood, smiling through the pain. She was no longer just surviving. She was adapting. Somewhere above her, the Queen watched through thousands of eyes. For the first time in centuries, she felt something she didn't understand. Fear. Elise didn't sleep that night. She sat in the glowing dark, sharpening her weapon on a bone fragment. Her eyes were calm, her face expressionless. Around her, the hive whispered, restless and angry, but Elise only murmured back, "Keep whispering." "The more you talk, the more I learn how to kill you." She smiled faintly. The human who had walked in trembling was gone. What crawled out of the darkness now was something else, something the hive itself had created without meaning to, something it could no longer control. The hive had grown quiet, too quiet. For days, Elise had wandered through its endless tunnels of red light and bone, waiting for another attack. None came. The air was still. The whispers had stopped. The creatures that once hunted her now hid in the walls, watching but not moving. Something was changing. The hive wasn't just alive, it was thinking. Elise stopped by a pool of thick, glowing liquid that reflected her face. She hardly recognized herself anymore. Her skin was streaked with alien blood. Her hair was tangled. Her eyes were colder, sharper. She looked like someone who had stared too long into hell and started to like the view. She dipped her fingers into the glowing fluid. It pulsed at her touch, alive like everything else here. Then the voice came, not in her ears, in her mind. Soft at first, smooth like silk crawling behind her thoughts. "Human." Elise froze. "You walk through my veins. You kill my children. Yet you do not beg. You do not cry." Elise gripped her weapon tighter. "Finally decided to talk, huh?" The voice purred. "Talk? Yes. I wanted to see what a human tastes like when it stops pretending to be brave." Elise smirked. "You'll choke on me." The hive around her pulsed in response, the walls glowing brighter, reacting to the Queen's emotions. "You are alone, little flame. You have no hive, no link, no purpose. You fight for ghosts." Elise took a slow step forward. "You're wrong. I fight for revenge." "Revenge?" The Queen's voice echoed with amusement. "A fragile word. My kind does not understand revenge. We consume, we evolve. You could join us, human. Imagine it, your mind connected to mine. Your pain gone, your strength multiplied." "Sounds like slavery with extra steps," Elise muttered. The hive's laughter was everywhere, 1,000 mouths laughing at once. "Foolish creature. You think your kind matters? You are dust in our shadow." Elise's eyes hardened. "Dust doesn't bleed." "You do." She stabbed her blade into the ground. The floor screamed. The whole chamber shook like it was in pain. The hive felt every strike. The Queen hissed in her head. "You dare wound my body?" "Not the first body I've broken today." Elise moved deeper, guided by instinct more than sense. The tunnels narrowed, glowing brighter the closer she came to the hive's heart. She knew the Queen was watching, whispering through every wall. The voice shifted in tone, less mocking now, more curious. "You should be dead, human. So my children were meant to tear you apart." Yet you walk my halls as if you belong. Maybe I do, Elise said. Maybe I'm the infection you didn't see coming. The voice fell silent for a moment, almost uneasy, then it returned colder. You cannot infect perfection. Perfection doesn't bleed blue. The walls shuddered again, as if her words alone had struck a nerve. She realized something then, her defiance hurt the hive. The queen could control her creatures, her walls, her flesh, but not her will. That was something the hive could never copy. Hours later, she entered a vast chamber filled with spiraling pillars of living tissue. The air vibrated, humming with psychic energy. She could feel it pressing against her skull, digging into her memories, her childhood, her family. Nolan's face as he died, all of it flashed before her eyes. The hive was trying to tear her apart from the inside. She fell to her knees, clutching her head, screaming. The voice of the queen grew louder, filling her mind with images of her fallen team, alive again, reaching for her. You failed them, Elise. You led them to their deaths. You are the monster, not me. Her heart pounded. The air vibrated with grief and rage. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't stop fighting. No, she gasped. You don't get to use them against me. She slammed her hands against the floor. They died for a reason, and I'll make it count. The queen's laughter echoed through her bones. You cannot win against what you cannot see. Then show yourself, Elise shouted. Stop hiding. The ground split open. From the center of the chamber, a shape rose, massive, terrible, beautiful in its horror, the Hive Queen. Her body was made of black silk and bone, her form shifting constantly, like a nightmare struggling to take shape. Her face was both alien and human, almost familiar. Elise took a slow step forward. So, this is what a god looks like. The queen's voice shook the air. A god? No, I am the swarm. I am what your species fears in the dark. Elise smirked. Then you should have stayed in the dark. The queen tilted her head. You think you can kill me? I already did, Elise said. You just haven't noticed yet. The queen frowned. At that moment, the floor beneath her shimmered. Tiny explosive nodes Elise had planted along her path, made from the acid sacs of dead drones. She pressed the trigger. The explosion ripped through the chamber. Flesh and fire tore upward. The queen screamed, her psychic wail shaking the hive for miles. Pieces of her fell like molten rain, but she wasn't dead. Not yet. Through the smoke, the queen's massive hand lashed out, slamming Elise against the wall. Bones cracked. Pain exploded in her chest. Elise gasped, blood dripping from her mouth. The queen leaned closer, eyes burning bright violet. You hurt me, but you cannot kill me. Elise coughed out a laugh. You're wrong again. With her last strength, she raised her blade, the same piece of metal she had carried since her capture, and drove it deep into the queen's chest. Blue blood splattered across her face. The hive screamed as the queen convulsed, the psychic connection tearing apart. The walls cracked. The light dimmed. The whispers stopped. Elise collapsed beside the dying creature. Her body ached. Her vision blurred. The queen's voice trembled, fading. What are you? Elise looked up at her, eyes empty but fierce. Human, she said. That's all it takes to kill a god. The queen's light went out. The hive fell silent. Elise sat in the dark, breathing hard, covered in blue blood and firelight. She looked at her shaking hands and started to laugh, low, broken, wild, because she realized something terrifying. She had entered the hive to destroy a monster. But now, maybe she was one. Smoke drifted from the broken hive like breath from a dying beast. The sky above Cygna 9 was black, streaked with red lightning and falling debris. The once living fortress now trembled in silence, its walls collapsing inward, the hum of millions of voices gone. From the heart of the ruin, a figure moved. Commander Elise Ward stepped into the open air. Her body was drenched in blood, thick, blue, and steaming. Her hair hung loose over her face, and her eyes glowed faintly in the reflection of burning bone. For a long moment no one breathed. The Krith soldiers who guarded the hive's outer chambers froze. Their minds were connected, one thought, one fear. They could all feel what she had done. The psychic song of their queen was gone, replaced by an empty void. Their world had gone silent. Elise walked past them, slow and calm. Every step left dark footprints in the ash. She carried nothing but her broken blade, still wet with the Queen's blood. The lead guard took a step forward, his mouth opening to speak, or perhaps to scream. Elise lifted her gaze, and whatever courage he had dissolved instantly. There was no fear in her eyes. No mercy. Only that strange, deadly calm, I told her, Elise said softly. Her voice cracked but held power. Humans don't kneel. The guard backed away, trembling. Others followed. They didn't attack. They couldn't. Without the Queen's mind, they were confused. Children without a mother. And somewhere deep in their shared thoughts, something new had appeared. A shape, a name. Fear, the blooded human. Elise reached the landing bay where the Krith commander, a tall skeletal figure named Varin, waited beside his living ship. He had ordered her thrown into the hive 3 days ago. He had watched with cold amusement as she was sealed inside. Now that amusement was gone. He stared at her through glowing eyes, disbelief written across his alien face. "You survived," Elise smirked, her lips cracked and bloody. "Looks like your hive had a few design flaws," Varin hissed. "Impossible." "The Queen, she's dead," Elise interrupted. "You might want to start looking for a new religion." The ground beneath them shuddered as the last of the hive's core exploded. A deep roar rolled across the plain, echoing into the night sky. Varin stumbled, then looked at her again. "You killed her alone." Elise tilted her head. "You sound surprised. Do you know what you have done, human?" Varin's voice cracked with fury. "Without the hive, the swarm will turn on itself. You have doomed entire worlds." Elise's smile didn't fade. "Good," the commander froze. He saw it then, the madness in her eyes, or maybe the clarity. The difference no longer mattered. She wasn't the same woman he had sent to die. Elise took another step forward. "You think humans fear extinction? You think death breaks us. But you're wrong. Death is how we learn." She stopped inches from him, staring straight into his alien eyes. "You studied us, didn't you? You learned our languages, our weaknesses, our anatomy. But you never learned the one thing that keeps us alive." Varin's voice trembled. "And what is that?" Elise leaned closer, whispering, "Rage." The alien soldiers began to retreat. Some dropped their weapons, backing away slowly as if they were seeing a ghost. Others fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the psychic emptiness left by their queen's death. Elise didn't stop them. She didn't care. She was done running. She turned her eyes toward the horizon, where the wreckage of her ship still lay buried in ash. Her crew's insignia, Ghost Unit, was half buried, scorched but unbroken. She knelt for the first time since the mission began. Her blood-stained fingers traced the metal letters. "You did it," she whispered to the wind. "We did it." Then she stood again. Whatever softness had been in her eyes vanished. Time to finish this. Varin gathered what little will he had left and lunged. A long black spear shot from his arm, striking toward her heart. Elise caught it mid-thrust. The alien gasped. The weapon trembled in her grip, refusing to move. Her human hand, slick with blood, held the living weapon still as if it weighed nothing. Varin stepped back, shocked. "What are you?" Elise looked down at her hand, flexing it. The blood on her skin, the Queen's blood, was still alive, glowing faintly. It pulsed with her heartbeat, moving with her. She didn't know what the hive's blood was doing to her. She didn't care. She raised the spear and drove it straight through Varin's chest. The alien fell without a sound. Elise pulled the weapon free, breathing heavily. The glow of the hive's blood flickered again under her skin, crawling up her arm like veins of blue fire. For a moment, she stared at it and smiled. Hours later, a human scout drone detected movement on the surface of Cygna 9. The recording it transmitted back to the fleet was short, grainy and terrifying. A single human soldier, covered in blue blood, walking calmly across a field of alien corpses. The drone's sensors couldn't identify her vital signs. It classified her as biologically unstable, but then she looked up and straight at the camera and smiled. Signal lost. Back on the United Earth Command ship, chaos erupted. The feed replayed again and again. Officers whispered, scientists argued, soldiers stared in silence. "Who is that?" one asked. The Admiral leaned closer, voice trembling. "That's Commander Elise Ward, the one we sent on the peace mission." "But that mission failed," another said. The Admiral shook his head. "No, it didn't." He turned to the holographic screen showing the shattered remains of the hive planet. "She did it." Meanwhile on Cygna 9, Elise watched the stars burn. The hive's destruction had set off a chain reaction. Entire networks of connected queens were screaming across the galaxy. She could feel it faintly like echoes in her skull. They knew what she had done and they were afraid. She raised her face to the sky, her voice steady, calm, almost gentle. "You hear me?" she whispered. "I'm coming for all of you." Then she started walking again, alone, laughing softly, her blood glowing like fire under her skin. Behind her, the hive world burned. Ahead of her, the stars waited. They called her the Blooded Human. No one knew where the name came from. Some said the alien soldiers who saw her emerge from the hive whispered it before dying. Others claimed it spread through the shattered psychic network of the Krith themselves, carried like a ghost through every surviving mind. But the story was always the same. A lone human walked into the Queen's lair and came out laughing. Covered in her blood, weeks passed. The war front went quiet. The hive fleets, once endless, unstoppable, began to turn on each other. Without their Queen's voice to guide them, the Krith were confused, desperate. Some fought for dominance, others wandered in circles, lost and starving. And in the middle of that chaos, new signals began to appear. Short, encrypted, human-coded. It was Elise. She had found a working transmitter on the ruins of a Krith relay tower and used it to contact the United Earth Command. The signal was faint, filled with static, but her voice carried through like thunder in the silence. "This is Commander Ward," she said. "Mission complete. Hive Queen eliminated. Zeigner 9 secured." The line went dead after that. For a moment, the entire command room aboard the Earth flagship was silent. Then applause broke out. Some shouted, some cried. Even the Admiral, a man known for never smiling, looked away to hide the tear running down his face. But deep inside, they all knew something had changed. Elise hadn't just won a battle. She had rewritten the rules of the war. Across the galaxy, rumors spread faster than truth. On alien trade routes and outlaw frequencies, the legend grew. The human didn't die in the hive. She became part of it. No weapon can kill her. She bleeds blue now like the monsters she destroyed. She commands the hive's dead through the blood she took from their queen. In the dark bars of space stations, bounty hunters argued whether she was still human at all. In the cold temples of conquered planets, alien priests whispered her name in fear, afraid she might hear. To the Krith, she was a curse. To human soldiers, she was a symbol. Posters appeared on the walls of warships, stylized images of a woman covered in alien blood holding a jagged blade. Under it, a slogan, "Fear us as you fear her." For the first time in years, humanity believed it could win. Elise, meanwhile, traveled through the ruins of Krith worlds alone. She scavenged what she needed, slept in the husks of alien cities, and watched the stars in silence. Sometimes she heard the Queen's voice echoing faintly in her dreams, not alive but lingering. "You killed me, human, but you carry me inside you now." Elise would wake up, her hands shaking, her veins glowing faint blue under her skin. She could feel the hive's remnants in her, whispers in the back of her mind, signals she didn't fully understand. The Queen's blood was still inside her, and it was changing her. At first it frightened her. She felt her senses sharpen, hearing things miles away, seeing faint trails of heat in the dark. Her wounds healed faster than they should. Sometimes her reflection flickered in the glass, her eyes glowing like the hive's. But as days turned into weeks, she stopped fighting it. "Fine," she said one night, looking at the stars. "You wanted me to be part of you. Then you get to watch me destroy the rest of you." The whispers went silent after that. On one ruined world, she found a group of human refugees, soldiers and engineers who had survived a Krith invasion. When they saw her, they froze. Her appearance alone made them hesitate. Half covered in alien markings, eyes faintly luminescent, one soldier raised his weapon. "Identify yourself." Elise didn't flinch. "Commander Elise Ward, United Earth Fleet." The soldier lowered his gun slowly. "That's not possible." She didn't shout. She didn't boast. She simply said, "They think we're fragile. They think we break. Let's prove them wrong." And just like that, the broken remnants of Earth's army found their strength again. In the following months, smaller hive colonies began to fall. Human ships, inspired by Elise's survival, launched coordinated strikes destroying Krith nodes faster than ever before. Alien empires that once mocked humans now watched in silence. Some offered alliances. Others fled their border systems, afraid of attracting humanity's new wrath. Among them, an old alien scholar wrote a single line in his archives: "The species that laughs in the dark is the species that cannot be conquered." Yet even as her legend grew, Elise felt the weight of it pressing down. Every world she helped liberate, every soldier who saluted her, reminded her of what she had lost. Her crew, her friends, her old self. Sometimes, she caught her reflection in the metal walls of abandoned ships. The blood still clung to her skin, no matter how many times she washed it. Her laughter, once human, now carried an echo, like something else was laughing with her. But when she looked up at the stars, the fire in her eyes never dimmed. She whispered softly to herself, "Let them make their legends. I'm not done yet." One night, as she prepared to leave another ruined world, her communicator flickered to life. "Commander Ward," a voice said. Human, calm, familiar. "This is Admiral Ross. If you're hearing this, we need you back. We're taking the fight to the hive." Elise stood there for a long moment, the wind howling through the broken structures around her. Then she smiled. "About time," she whispered. She looked toward the stars, where hundreds of alien worlds waited, hive clusters still burning bright. Her laughter echoed through the ruins. Cold, fierce, unstoppable. The legend of the blooded human was no longer just a story. It was a warning, and the galaxy was finally listening. The war that once belonged to the Krith now belonged to her. For the first time in years, human fleets didn't flee. They advanced. The stars that once burned with alien fire now flashed with blue-white plasma, the light of human weapons striking back. At the center of it all was Commander Elise Ward, now more symbol than soldier. Her name carried through every broadcast, every transmission, every battlefield whisper. When her fleet arrived, soldiers shouted a single phrase over the comms, "For the blooded." But Elise didn't care about the titles. She cared about ending it, every hive, every nest, every crawling nightmare that had taken her people. It began with Operation Dawnstrike. The United Earth Fleet gathered near the ruins of Cygna 9. Over 300 ships, refitted with technology stolen from the hive's own biology. Their armor pulsed faintly with living fibers. Their engines ran on hybrid plasma, a terrifying blend of machine and alien flesh. Some called it monstrous. Elise called it necessary. In the war room aboard the flagship Resolute, holographic maps glowed red with enemy systems. Officers spoke in tense, clipped voices. Admiral Ross stood beside Elise, his expression grim. "You sure this is the plan you want to lead?" he asked. "The Krith still control half the sector. You go in there and there's no backup." Elise didn't blink. "Then I'll make my own." Ross studied her face, pale, marked with faint blue veins that glowed when she was angry. She didn't look human anymore, not completely. But she was still the most human person he'd ever met. "Then God help them," he said quietly. The first strike hit Vor Station, a massive hive fortress orbiting a dying sun. The Krith swarmed out like insects, a million wings tearing through the dark. Elise led the attack from her modified fighter, fast, black, half alive. When her engines roared, the hive seemed to hesitate, as if recognizing something familiar in the sound. She smiled inside her helmet. "Oh, you remember me," she whispered. Then she dove straight into the swarm. Plasma trails lit up the void. Explosions tore through the blackness like stars being born. Elise's ship cut through the hive like a blade, firing bursts of human and alien weaponry combined. Her squadron followed, shouting over comms, "Blooded One! We're right behind you!" Inside the hive fortress, the alien commanders panicked. Some screamed through the psychic link, others fled. The Queen was gone, and the echo of her mind was silent. For the first time, the hive felt something new: fear. Within an hour, Vor Station fell. Human ships floated over its burning carcass, dragging victory from the jaws of extinction. Soldiers cheered. Some wept, but Elise didn't celebrate. She stood on the bridge, looking down at the twisted remains of alien bodies. "This isn't the end," she said. "This is the start of their extinction." Over the next weeks, humanity moved like fire across the stars. Hive after hive burned. Planets that once screamed under alien rule now saw dawn for the first time in years. Everywhere she went, Elise left her mark, not just through victory, but through something stranger. Sometimes, after a battle, hive corpses twitched and turned to attack their own kind. Other times, alien fleets broke formation, as if hearing a voice that told them to stop. Only Elise knew the truth. She was using the hive's network. The blood inside her, the queen's blood, let her reach into the psychic void that bound the creatures together. She couldn't control them fully, but she could whisper, confuse, distract, make them turn on each other. It terrified her officers when they realized what she was doing. "You're playing with the same power that destroyed us," said Ross one night after a battle. "If you lose control—" "I won't," Elise interrupted. Her voice was calm, but her eyes glowed faintly. "Because I'm not her." Ross didn't answer. He didn't know if he believed it. As the campaign spread deeper into Krith territory, Elise began to sense something. A faint pulse in her mind, distant, steady, calling her. At first she thought it was the Queen's echo, but no. This was different, colder, stronger. The hive was adapting. Every destroyed colony, every dead nest, sent its energy somewhere. The Krith had begun to merge their remaining leaders into something new, something vast. They called it the core mind. It was forming in the dark between galaxies, gathering strength from the broken pieces of the swarm. If it finished, the hive would return, stronger than before, united under a mind more terrible than the Queen ever was. Elise knew what that meant. This wasn't just a war. It was a countdown. In the final briefing before the push toward the core mind system, Elise stood before her soldiers. Rows of battle-worn humans looked up at her, faces scarred, eyes tired but burning with faith. "This will be our last fight," she said. "You've all heard the stories, about me, about the hive, about what happened on Cygna 9. She paused, scanning their faces. "Those stories don't matter. What matters is that we are still here. Humanity isn't strong because we have better guns. We're strong because we refuse to die." A murmur of pride ran through the ranks. Elise smiled faintly. "They sent me into the monster's lair once," she said softly. "Now we send them into ours." The soldiers roared. The engines of 300 ships thundered to life. As the fleet entered the void toward the core system, Elise felt the hive stirring, like something ancient waking from sleep. Her mind burned with static and whispers, but she didn't flinch. "Come on then," she whispered. "Let's finish what we started." Outside, space itself seemed to tremble. The hive swarms began to rise, endless black and burning. Human ships spread into formation, their lights glowing like a new constellation of defiance. The greatest battle in the history of two species was about to begin, and at the heart of it all stood one, human, the woman who had laughed inside the monster's lair and returned drenched in its blood. The void before them wasn't space. It was alive. Where stars once shone, now there was only movement. A vast cloud of shifting shapes, a swarm that stretched across light years. The hive had gathered everything left of its kind. Every creature, every ship, every screaming echo of its dead. And at the center of it all pulsed the core mind, a sphere the size of a moon, glowing with veins of red and blue light. It was made of living flesh and metal fused together. Its surface rippled like muscle, its heartbeat slow but deafening across the void. Inside that monstrous heart, a single voice called out, not with words, but with emotion, anger, loss, revenge. Elise Ward felt all of it. Standing on the bridge of the Resolute, her hands tightened around the railing as the hive's psychic noise flooded her mind. Her soldiers waited for orders, eyes locked on the dark beyond the glass. "Fleet is in position," said Admiral Ross. "All squadrons reporting ready." "We're awaiting your signal, Commander." Elise didn't answer at first. She stared into the dark and felt the hive looking back. Somewhere out there, it knew her. It remembered her blood. She closed her eyes. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the core mind's heart. She could feel it beating through her, the alien blood inside her veins answering the call. When she spoke, her voice was calm. "Begin the charge." The stars exploded with light. 300 human ships roared forward, their engines burning white against the endless black. Missiles streaked through space like falling comets. The first wave slammed into the hive's wall, a storm of living ships that screamed as they died. Inside the bridge, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. The Resolute shook under the impact of alien fire. "Shields at 70%, shouted a technician. Multiple swarms incoming from the east flank. "Keep formation," Elise ordered. "Target their spines, not the hulls." The ship turned sharply, cutting through waves of living enemies. Each one exploded into shards of glowing flesh. Outside it looked like chaos, but there was rhythm, a pattern in the madness. Elise could feel it. The hive moved like an ocean tide, every creature obeying a single mind. She could sense its strategy before it happened. Every feint, every shift, every ambush. She turned to Ross. "Send Delta Squadron to Sector 9. They're moving there next." He frowned. "How do you—" "Just trust me." Seconds later, the swarm hit exactly where she said it would. Delta Squadron was ready. They tore through it, scattering the enemy. Ross stared at her in disbelief. "You're reading their thoughts." Elise didn't deny it. "I'm using what they left inside me. If we're going to win, I have to become what they fear most." He said nothing. There was nothing to say. Hours passed. Ships burned. Space filled with wreckage, drifting metal, broken creatures, silent cries. Humanity fought harder than it ever had before, but the core mind wasn't dying. Every time they destroyed a piece of it, new growth spread from within. It was healing itself, feeding on its own dead. Elise watched as one of her cruisers was swallowed whole by the living sphere. The screams of the crew echoed through the comms until they went silent. She clenched her fists. "We're not breaking it fast enough." Ross turned to her. "Then what do we do?" Elise looked at the glowing mass of the core mind, and she knew the answer even before she wanted to admit it. "I go in." The Admiral froze. "That's suicide." "Maybe," she said softly. "But I've been there before." He shook his head. "You barely survived last time." "You're not—" Elise turned toward him. Her eyes glowed faint blue, steady, unafraid. "I am. I was built for this the day they threw me into that hive. They gave me their blood. I'm going to use it to end them." Ross's voice cracked. "If you go in there, I won't be able to pull you out." "I know," she smiled. Tired, fearless human. "That's the point." Minutes later, Elise's small fighter launched from the Resolute. The fleet opened a path for her, blasting apart the enemy ships that tried to stop her. The hive recognized her presence immediately. The swarm shifted, turning toward her like an eye focusing on a threat. Elise grinned behind her cracked helmet. "Yeah, you remember me." She pushed the throttle forward. Her ship dove straight into the storm, through living tendrils, burning plasma, and clouds of alien blood. Every second felt like eternity. Then she saw it, the core mind, massive, glowing, beautiful, and terrible. Its surface rippled as if breathing her name. A voice entered her head, soft and cold. "Human, you carry my blood." "You are mine," Elise laughed. Not anymore. She drove her ship straight into the core mind's outer wall. The impact shook the universe. Metal melted. Flesh screamed. The cockpit exploded with light, and Elise was gone. Inside the core there was no air, no light, no sound, and only thought. She floated in liquid darkness, surrounded by living tendrils and the faint hum of millions of voices. "You could have been like us," the voice whispered. "We offered you unity. You chose pain." Elise's body burned, her blood glowing brighter. "I didn't choose pain," she said. "I chose freedom." The tendrils wrapped around her, pulling her deeper. Faces appeared in the dark, the faces of her dead team, of Nolan, of everyone she'd lost. "Join them," the voice said. "Be still." Elise's hands shook. For a moment she almost gave in. Then she heard Nolan's voice in her memory, clear, steady, human. "Finish it, Commander." Elise's eyes snapped open. She reached to her belt and pulled out a small device, a fusion detonator. But it wasn't just a bomb. It was connected to her bloodstream, to the hive blood within her. When it went off, it would trigger a chain reaction through the core's living network. She smiled through the pain. "You wanted to share your mind with me," she whispered. "Then take it all." She pressed the trigger. From the Resolute, Admiral Ross watched the impossible. The core mind began to glow, first red, then white, then brighter than any star. The entire hive fleet froze, their ships trembling mid-space. Then they started to crumble, dissolving into dust, torn apart by their own psychic link. "Commander Ward's signal just vanished," said an officer quietly. Ross didn't speak. He just stood there, watching the explosion expand across the void like a sunrise. After minutes of blinding light, there was nothing left. The hive was gone. The silence that followed was absolute. Days later, survivors searched the wreckage. They found no trace of Elise's body. Only her fighter's blackened wing floating among the stars. Some said she died in the blast. Others said she became part of the hive's energy, drifting forever between worlds. But sometimes when soldiers looked into the night sky, they swore they heard laughter, faint, echoing, almost human. And in the silence after every battle, when fear began to creep in again, someone would whisper the words that had become a legend across the stars. They sent the human into the monster's lair, and she came back laughing. Humanity rebuilt. The hive never returned. But on one distant world, under a red sun, a lone figure stood among alien ruins, a woman with glowing eyes, blood on her hands and a quiet smile on her face. She looked up at the stars, and for the first time in a long while she whispered, "I told you I'd finish it." Then she vanished into the dust, leaving behind only footprints and the echo of her laughter, rolling through the empty sky like thunder. The end.